This episode of Greenhouse Grower to Grower is brought to you by Westbrook Greenhouse Systems, a trusted North American leader in complete greenhouse solutions. From structures and heating to curtains, benches, and full installation, Westbrook delivers systems built to perform and built to last. With a team known for long-term expertise and reliability, you can trust Westbrook with your next greenhouse project, whether it's glass or poly, open roof or freestanding. Learn more at westbrooksystems.com. Connect with them on LinkedIn or visit them at major industry shows across North America.
Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we're shaping the future of floriculture, one conversation at a time. We talk with the growers, leaders, and innovators shaping tomorrow's greenhouse industry today. From market trends, next generation plants, and innovative production, to the challenges and breakthroughs redefining what it means to grow. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. Let's dig into what's next together. Welcome back to the Greenhouse Grower to Grower podcast. Again, I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. I am joined today by, I will say, a fairly new member of our team. That's Kristin Zeit. I say fairly new because Kristin, you and I recorded last year Cultivate, a live version of this podcast right from our Greenhouse Grower booth at Cultivate. So I know our audience got to hear from you a little bit then. If you haven't, be sure and check out that episode. It went live. I think it was around the end of July or so. But Kristin, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Brian. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. Before we go too far, why don't you give our audience of those listening just kind of brief overview of, your background, your role at Greenhouse Grower and at Meister for those who aren't familiar.
So I'm the group content lead for Meister Media's Protected Crops brands, which includes Greenhouse Grower and CEAg World. So I'm also the content lead for the CEAg World brand. So my focus is kind of, my background is in journalism. I've worked in magazines, B2B magazines for a very long time. So my role is kind of behind the scenes and also getting to know the different industries really well and talking to as many people as possible, writing, editing, and all that good stuff.
And I know, Kristin, you immediately jumped on board with two of our biggest issues of the year. Our January issue and one we just wrapped up our February issue. And I got to say, your skills as an editor were put to use very quickly. And very importantly, I know, at a time you're getting, you have the holidays coming up. So you've got a lot of other things on your mind. You've got a big issue. We're trying to turn around a lot of content in a short amount of time. And keeping us in check on making sure that we were putting out nice quality content was extremely valuable during that time. So right off the bat, I'm going to thank you for your help with that.
Well, you're welcome. There's a ton of great content in both of those issues, and it's really helpful for me to just dig in and read as much as possible. So yeah, I think everybody needs an editor. Everybody needs a second set of eyes, third set of eyes on things. So I'm happy to be that.
Awesome. Well, and you mentioned, our last couple issues. So as we're recording this, we are literally wrapping up our February issue of Greenhouse Grower today. So that's going to be hitting mailboxes, and a lot of the content we posted online in the first couple of weeks or so of the month. Just as I was going through the list of stories here before we got started here, lot of really in-depth content that we're focusing on this month. It starts off with a cover story written by Marissa Reyes on our team on Grand Flower Growers and on some of the expansions that they've gone through. If you notice in our January issue, we had a succession plan focused story that gave the perspectives of a couple of different companies in this industry who are nearing the finishing stage of their succession plan, which is, of course, a key topic in this market. In February, we had a similar conversation with a company called Danville Gardens. They are more in the early stages of that process. So this was kind of a look at how the conversation got started. It's a family-run company. And one of the key things I remember from that is, the couple I talked to, they're still on the younger side, but they were trying to figure out, okay, when should we start this process? And I think they learned pretty quickly the answer is now. It's a long process you go through, whether you're, selling to somebody else, the company, whether you're transitioning it within the family. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So making sure that you're clear on all communication and having all the right steps in place is important. So we had a nice conversation about that, and kind of tied into that. You look at some of the ways that this industry is really looking to, expand how it recruits new talent into the market. So I talked to a few different growers in this industry and got some nice perspectives on some of the new ways that they're recruiting, young talent. One of the ways being, there's a lot of growers who are really stepped up their game in terms of biological pest control, and they actually use that to market themselves as a company for, a generation that's really becoming much more in line with sustainability, environmentalism, and promoting that as a key value at your company goes a long way. So that's just one of the things that you can watch out for in the February issue. One of the other big themes was, software and particularly AI integration. So I had a lot of nice conversations with those types of company in the industry, how they are incorporating AI into their tools and platforms, and then in turn, how they work with their grower customers to kind of do the same thing. It's an industry that is evolving really quickly. So the conversations I had at that time were, I think, just a part of the ongoing conversation that we're going to continue to have in this industry, as that becomes much more of a pressing need. So again, that's just a teaser of some of the things that you'll find in Greenhouse Growers February issue, which again will be available around the first or second week of next month. So, Kristin, I want to turn it over to you, and if you want to go over just some of the big key areas that you're focused on right now as you work on CEAg World.
Yeah, sure. So right now, one of the biggest projects we're focusing on is wrapping up the annual 2025 Global CEA census report. That's something that CEAg World co-produces with the consulting firm Agritecture. And for those who don't know, the Global CEA census provides kind of like an annual snapshot of what's actually happening inside controlled environment agriculture operations around the world. The focus is on food production, but there are insights and lessons that are relevant there for floriculture operations as well. This year's edition includes input from more than 470 farms, suppliers, and researchers, and
Wow.
that's across 57 countries. So and j-
You
it's
can't get much more in depth than that.
it's a lot. It's a lot. And just to kind of give you a little preview, the results really point strongly to an industry that's starting to grow up. There's a much stronger focus on efficiency and better use of data and more thoughtful crop and market strategies. And at the same time, growers are still dealing with very real pressures from energy costs, labor availability, access to reliable markets. These are things that I'm sure sound very familiar to the listeners of this podcast too.
Yeah.
So growth hasn't disappeared as a goal, but it's no longer about scaling at any cost. So I also want to mention that this year's census digs deeply into how growers are using automation and artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And I think what's interesting is that with AI, we're quickly evolving past the hype and really getting into it as a practical tool.
Yeah.
And actually, you were talking about the February issue and reading several of the articles there. You can kind of see how that's happening, how it's really being integrated quickly, and people are very quickly learning to rely on that as long as you do it correctly.
Yeah.
So, through the survey, we learned, growers are applying it to climate control, fertigation, pest management, yield forecasting to help reduce risk, manage labor challenges, and stabilize margins. So, the report goes much deeper than what I'm sharing here. And I think if you're running any kind of commercial greenhouse business and thinking about efficiency, technology adoption, or, long-term resilience, I think there's a lot in this report that's worth a look. So keep an eye out for that at ceagworld.com in February. We'll have that report finalized, and then you'll be able to download the full report for free.
Okay. Well, and it's interesting too, again, you talk about automation and AI, and, in an industry like controlled environment agriculture, which just seems to be ever evolving and expanding. I think a lot of that technology and how it's implemented kind of starts in that sector of the market before, I don't want to say it trickles down to a market like floriculture, but I think it extends over into how, growers on the ornamental side can best take advantage of it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you really get a sense with some of the operations that you're looking at and talking to, these are a lot of the first adopters, and the lessons that they've learned are going to start, being applied across the entire specialty crops covered agriculture industry. So there's going to be a lot of great insights in there, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. That makes it, all the more reason to kind of take a look so you can see what's coming down the pipe.
Yeah, for sure. Um, just in terms of upcoming travel for our team, because it's always nice to let everybody know where we're going to be headed. We've got at the end of March, California Spring Trials is approaching. So this was I should say last year was my first time going. And I've talked about it many times before, whether it's on video with Dr. Alan Armitage and some of the articles I've written. From my perspective, just being a first time attendee there last year, being blown away by just every time you walk into a greenhouse and you see all this color on display, and folks running around just really trying to show you the results of years of breeding research and effort that goes into producing new varieties, and being able to really see them for the first time at an event like California Spring Trials. If you go to greenhousegrower.com, you can find a lot of our coverage from last year and of the past few years, as well as on our YouTube channel. So, Kristin, I know this is going to be your first chance to attend an event like California Spring Trials. So I know you don't necessarily have the perspective, but is there anything that you're particularly looking forward to as you get ready for that?
Yeah, I mean, I love site visits. I am super excited about this. First of all, the idea of going to California right now sounds amazing when it's like -1 degree here here in Cincinnati. But also, I've loved all the greenhouse tours I've been able to do thus far. The idea of seeing all the colors, like you mentioned, I'm used to green. I'm used to maybe some red from strawberries, some red from tomatoes. I'm really excited to see like all the different things that are going to be on display.
Oh yeah, and I remember from last year, one of the things it's always trying to figure out what's really new in terms of series or in terms of plant traits, because there's so much on display there. One of the things that I did was I'm walking around with Dr. Alan Armitage, who's been a contributor to the industry and a greenhouse grower for a number of years. Alan's been to CAST several times, so I made a point of following right behind him as we're walking through the greenhouses, and I would watch for when he'd be walking down an aisle. Something would catch his eye, he'd walk past it, and then he'd stop and he'd back up and he'd look
Mm.
at it again. And that's where, that's what really told me, okay, this is something truly interesting. If it's something that is catching the eye of Alan, who again has been to CAST several times, sees all the new varieties coming out. So that was my own particular way of learning what's really hot and what's going to be coming down the line here soon.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. I think just talking to as many people as possible, hearing what they have to say, seeing what's catching their eye, is just incredibly useful and would think help me
Oh yeah,
understand this
absolutely.
industry.
Yep. Before we wrap up here, and I'll talk about the next part of this episode that you'll hear. I did this a couple weeks ago with Marissa Reyes and I when we were recording one of our first podcasts like this. I know that folks are still learning more about you, Kristin, but any interesting fact about yourself that you want to just throw out there for our audience to get to know a little bit about you personally?
Huh. Interesting. What was yours? What did you give? I didn't hear the end of that last
So
one.
mine was, and I know you and I had talked about this once before. It was my top 100 music list that I'm putting
Oh,
together,
yeah.
which I'm still doing right now. It's an ongoing thing, and I'm having fun posting it. So a little bit into how my mind works when I'm not focusing on writing for this market. So that was mine.
All right. So mine is that I am very into aerial yoga.
Okay.
I do aerial yoga. Do you know what that is? It's like,
Yeah, I do.
so that is that is the thing that I started doing a couple years ago. And I find it really silly and fun and hard and, reward. So most people do not know that about me. So
I know what it is. I cannot picture myself doing it. I think I get sore just watching it. So credit to you for going down that road. That's impressive, because not a lot of us can do something like that.
I will not be sharing pictures or video, but you'll just have to take my word for that.
All right. Well, Kristin, it was great talking to you today, and we're going to keep this episode going. Coming up next, you get a chance to listen to my interview that I did with Diane Blazek at the National Garden Bureau. The National Garden Bureau took over registration for California Spring Trials last year, and Diane's been a regular attendee of that event over the years. In that conversation, we talk about what you can expect to cast this year, the registration process, a few changes in the schedule in terms of, where some of the breeders are going to be, and just some of the other ins and outs of what you can expect if you go to California Spring Trials this year. So please enjoy that conversation. And again, thanks for Kristin for joining me today.
Thanks, Brian.
So thank you for joining me today, Diane. We're here to talk about upcoming California Spring Trials, which I know, the National Garden Bureau took over registration for that last year, I think it was. And I know the process, what was great last year, and looking forward to a great experience again this year. So before we talk about this year's California Spring Trials, I want to take a step back because I know there's been a nice LinkedIn campaign going on right now called #CA Spring Trials Memories, where folks who have been there, over the years have talked about their favorite memories about California Spring Trials, some about plants. And I think the better part of it is not always about plants, it's about the overall experience. So let's start with some of your own personal favorite memories on attending cast over the years.
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I did post one myself, and that was the year that I took my mom with me.
Mhm.
That was shortly after I started working here at National Garden Bureau, so I was traveling alone, and it gets a little lonesome.
Yeah.
And one time I was visiting my mom, and she's just like, "Well, you're traveling alone. Can I come with you?" So I asked my board if it was okay, and they were like, "Sure." And absolutely, that was, one of my best memories because of that. And, she just really enjoyed getting to meet everybody because that's what CAST is about partially, is
Yeah.
the people, the connections, the partnerships. So, you're going out there to look at plants, absolutely, but the partnerships and relationships is, I would say, a very close second reason for attending CAST.
Oh, sure. And I know, I mean, when I did my own post like that, it was easy for me because last year was my first year of attending. So my memories are pretty much in a small window there. But I mean, for me, it was just being blown away every time I walked into a new greenhouse or a new display, and just color everywhere. And where do my eyes go first? And who I got to talk to first? What I want to see first? It was really overwhelming. Now, we always bring Dr. A. Allen Armitage with us. So one of the things that I learned, and just so anybody's listening to this, I'm going to be posting a video shortly of Alan and I talking about Alan's favorite memories as well. He's been going for years and years, so he's got quite a few. But one of the things that I learned last year, in walking through some of these displays with Alan, it takes a lot to impress him, I think. So I learned, if we're walking through a greenhouse and, he walks by a plant, walks a couple feet, stops, backs up and looks again, that's when I know that we're looking at something special here. So that was my own biggest takeaway, I think, from going to CAST last year. So everybody has their own memories, as you said, whether it's plants, whether it's relationships. There's always a travel horror story involved along the way as you're going from place to place. So it's just part of the process. So
It is, yeah. You've got the good things and sometimes the bad things, but it's interesting what you say, which I think I'd never really thought about this, but a newbie going along with somebody that's been going for 30 or 40 years,
yeah.
is excellent. I know every time I travel with somebody who has been there before,
Mhm.
and vice versa, every time I travel with somebody who's never been there before, it's really fun to learn from them, no matter if it's the first or the 40th, because you pick up on these things, and maybe they know the history a little bit more, and maybe they look at something and say, "Well, is that the one you brought out 10 years ago and now it's improved?" Or, "Now you're reintroducing the series or a mix," or something like that.
Yeah.
So that historical perspective is awesome, but
Mhm.
also to see it from a newbie's perspective, it gives you new insights as to what will grab people's attention.
Yeah.
And, like the first time I brought Gail from my office, you're really seeing it from the consumer standpoint.
Mhm.
Because if you've been in the industry a while, maybe you get a little jaded and you're like, "Okay, another one, another one, another one." But then you're seeing it from somebody else's perspective, and I love the idea that maybe we could get more consumer perspective. I'm not even thinking that we would, invite people to consumers, but part of what we do at National Garden Bureau is promote these kinds of things. So it is very impressive for somebody to know wow, this is what happens at this point on the chain, and this is how new varieties get introduced. It's a fascinating story.
Oh, sure. Well, and speaking of that, and I know I want to get to at some point here, just this year's schedule and what to expect. But you bring up a good point there. There's several parts of the supply chain in floriculture that attend CAS. Whether it's brokers or growers, large and small growers, and garden retailers. What are some of your thoughts on just the value that whatever part of the supply chain that you can take away from attending an event like CAS?
So, I mean, first and foremost, and obviously, it's seeing the new varieties, and you're seeing them grown in pretty much, natural conditions. I mean, California is different than Chicago, but you'll see what they look like in a pack or in a container, or whatever the case might be, a hanging basket.
Yeah.
And you get to see them real life, and so that's wonderful. And another thing that I think I've noticed over the years is that, you can pick up on trends,
Hmm.
and I've been saying this for probably 10 years or so. It used to be when you had a new series, and new colors in a series, they all had to be, just so, and they would never fade and never morph or anything.
Yeah.
Well, about 10 years ago, we started seeing embracing this morphing, and
Mhm.
and, I have to say our AES winner, Zinnia Profusion red, white, I'm sorry, red, yellow is the one that is just beautiful as it morphs from colors. And so
Yeah.
that's a trend that you can pick up on by going out to California Spring Crowds and seeing it. And then there's also that regionality. When you're out there and you walk in and your badge says Alabama, they know to talk to you about the things that will do well for you. So it's not a blanket statement that
Yeah.
a little bit hard to get unless you're one on one and really talking, okay, my market is this or my market is that. And, I'm in an urban area, I'm in a rural area, because there are different products for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and I know, just talking to some of the breeders last year, you brought up a good point there too. You're seeing the varieties in excellent conditions there. The next step is always going to be getting those varieties then to the regional field trials, whether it's grower trials, university trials, and that's where the true test, I think, tends to come. How are these varieties really going to perform? But the conversations always start at California Spring Trials, and the expectations, what you can hope to see from some of these new plants. What always stands out to me, well, actually always, last year, always, was, you've got new petunias, new calibricos, new dahlias, but then you've also got some of the emerging categories as well, garden veggies and cut flowers too. It's a big basket that makes up the different types of plants that you can see at Cast every year.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, perennials, they have a very big presence now. Every once in a while, you'll still see some flowering shrub, and like you say, the vegetables, foliage.
Hmm.
Every once in a while, it's like, oh wow, somebody new is exhibiting this, and then the cut flowers, which is just so hot right now. So yeah, it's not just about petunias. It's much bigger and broader than that. And if you really want to take advantage of this, I know that North Carolina State University, they're bringing their students out.
Yeah.
Well, they made some extra stops, and I do that too. I stopped to see one of our vegetable breeders that would never exhibit at Cast,
Sure.
but it gave me an opportunity to see them. There's great public gardens out there. So you just make the most of your trip. And I mean, if you're really squeezed, you can do it in 3 days. We're doing it in 3 days this year, but maybe you want to tack on a day at the end or the beginning if you're in the South or the North. And then you just really make the most of your time and expense to go out to California to have some other benefits from it.
Yeah. Well, and I do say, I mean, I will say, I think there's better chances now, I think, to build some of those extra times because that gives us a good chance to talk about the schedule this year. I know
Yeah.
back, and this is really before I came on Greenhouse Grower, or Pack Trials at the time, was this week and a half long venture where you're committing to a long time away from, your greenhouse and just, home as well. And
Yeah.
with the schedule consolidating year after year, this does give you the chance to do some of those add-on trips, whether it's, visiting another grower at their or breeding operation or garden center for that matter.
Mhm.
So let's talk about this year's schedule. I know the dates are set for March 24th through March 27th, which is a day less than it was last year. So it is, a 4-day window that you really have to see some of these sites this year. Um, and I know there's also been some changes in where some of the breeders are going to be located. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit in terms of
Yeah.
what folks can expect this year?
Yeah. So it is the 4 days. Last year, some of the places were open 4 days, some were just
Mhm.
open 3. So pretty much everybody's open 4 days now. I think Santa Barbara Polo Club is the only one that's not open on Friday. So
Okay.
for the most part, all 9 locations are open for all 4 days.
Mhm.
The major change is that the 2 locations that were up and over the mountains, out in Watsonville, California, have now
Mhm.
moved down to the Santa Barbara area. And so that saves a lot of time. I mean, number 1,
Yeah.
up and over the mountains. So the Israeli companies are all now at the Santa Barbara Polo Club. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of breeders, exhibitors at Santa Barbara Polo Club. So make
Yeah.
sure you allow enough time there. And then Benari, because they sold their facility in Watsonville, now they have moved to Port Lamar Nursery, which is only like 15 minutes from Santa Barbara Polo Club.
Yeah.
So you have a really nice concentration of places in the South. So you've got Ball in Santa Paula, you've got the Greenfuse location in Somas, and then the Santa Barbara Polo Club and Port Lamar Nursery or Benari in Santa Barbara. So that's a great place to either start or end, depending on how you're doing your trip.
Yeah.
And then mid-coast, we have Duman at, the COE Center of Effort Winery, and that's around San Luis Obispo, and then further north, then you've got another 4 locations, so that would be, Syngenta's location, the Head
Sure.
Start location that has Danziger and Think Plants, and now Express Seed is new there,
Mhm.
and then, in the Salinas area, you have the Cicada location and American Tacky location.
Yeah.
So, it's nice that so many of them are clumped together, and then it's also nice that Duman is there for kind of a break midway between making that 4-hour drive between them. You can make a quick stop there at well, not quick, you must
Right.
long stop, at Duman, but it's nice to break up the travel with that.
Yeah, and talk about a location there too. You have lunch and you look over the mountains there. It's just beautiful. And I know there's a new addition this year as well for cats. I know Walter's Gardens is gonna be there as well. So
Absolutely, yeah, they'll be at the Santa Barbara Polo Club, so that's yeah, not only did all these Israeli companies, but also Walter's Garden, so it definitely allow enough time. Don't think you're just seeing 1 or 2 breeders there, you need enough time to visit everyone.
yeah, absolutely. I kind of want to wrap up by just giving our listeners more information on how they can, participate in cast this year. I know you guys have done a great job with the website in terms of, not just having to schedule who's going to be where, but suggestions on here's how to best organize your trip based on whether you want to go south to north or north to south. And, and I mean, there's information there on here's approximately how much time you should probably spend at each location. Here's the driving distance from one to the other. All that helps out so much when you're planning a trip like that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm definitely a detailed trip planner, and
Mhm.
I just realized over the years, I've given my schedule to a lot of different people and said, "Well, here's how I do it," and I people are still using the schedule I put together years ago. So, yeah, I put together 2 different Excel files, like you say, one is north to south, one south to north. And, if you look at it and you really condense it, like I say, you can do it in 3 days. But when you go to the website, caspringtrials.us, there is a plan and register. And so when you click on that tab for plan and register, you're going to be able to see these suggested trips. And like you say, the drive times, thank goodness for Google Maps and everything,
Yeah.
we were able to calculate the drive times and based on experience as well and make
Mhm.
suggestions. When you go from Santa Paula to Somas, you can go up and over the mountains, which is rather precarious and sometimes gets some rain washing happening, or it
Right.
can go around and it really doesn't take that much more time. So we put that suggestion in there. So yeah, you can go on there and plan your trip, and then the registration we've made super easy, especially
Mhm.
for groups. So for example, let's say you're going and you're taking 5 people, you go in, you register as Brian, you put all your appointments in, and then you just click on the button that says add a companion and you enter their name and email address. They've got the same schedule as you. So it
Yeah.
was super easy to do group registrations.
Well, and I remember another benefit too is when you go to each stop, it's not like you have to get a new badge and sign up new the first, every time you go. Your first stop, you get your badge there, and you're set for the rest of the trip. You don't have to worry about any of that. Any of that, you can just go right to what you want to see at each location. That made things a whole lot easier last year.
Right. And I think we'll have a few more people scanning those badges so that they can better track who attends. But yeah, I mean, also from an environmental standpoint, so we've got one badge, one lanyard. Shout out to Master Tag. They're sponsoring lanyards this year. And yeah, so you just keep that badge, and it's just like a badge you get at Cultivate or whatever. And it has a QR code on it. It has your city and state, or rather your state, for the reason that I mentioned earlier about needing to know your regionality. So yeah, one badge, and it goes to when you register, we know which one you're going to first. So I'm just going to say this. If you've registered and you change your schedule, please go in and change it, because we will take those badges to your first location, your first stop. So if you change your schedule, your badge won't be there. So make sure you go back in and alter your registration if your travel plans change.
Is there a good deadline to think about for that? Because I know obviously you don't. I mean, if you're changing your schedule the day before it starts, that's a different story than a couple of weeks.
Right. The Friday before. So
Okay.
so let's see here. It starts on the 24th, 23rd, like on the 20th, March 20th would be the
Okay.
deadline to make those changes. Because we're gonna print the badges on Saturday and then deliver them on Sunday.
Sure. And I know one other really nice resource on the website is, and you can find this on our own website as well, greenhousegrower.com. For those who haven't attended, there's lots of links on the site to, coverage of previous year's events, photo galleries, videos, and then also as you get closer to this year's event, kind of getting a sense of what to expect, videos as well and slideshows as well. Here some of the new varieties, new series are going to be on display.
Yeah, you guys do a great job. So it's very helpful. We wanted to make sure that all of our media partners were linked to. So yeah, you're right. The links will be there. Like on the first page down below, it'll link to you guys. And then during and after, then we also have media previews and media reports and everything like that. Because what you produce is wonderful. I know the time that goes into that, and it's very valuable to anybody, no matter if you're going to cast or not.
Yeah. Well, and that website is caspringtrials.us as well for those who want to, register, learn more, and just, plan for a great trip. As we wrap up, Dan, any closing thoughts about California Spring Trials? What are you most excited about this year for yourself going this year?
Oh, that's a really good question. For me, it's just seeing everybody again. Sometimes it's like seeing the AS winners in person. I talk to everybody about our year of program. So it's seeing the plants. We use it as an opportunity to get videos. So for our YouTube channel that is direct to consumers, what I'm doing videos of this year, we'll be putting on our YouTube channel next year, because
Okay.
it doesn't make sense to tease consumers about them now if they can't get them.
Right.
So yeah, it's seeing the people talking about our programs and getting the video content that we'll be posting within the next 12 or 15 months.
Okay. Well, it's coming up here real soon as we talk. I think a little less than 2 months from now is when it takes place. So make sure you get yourself set up. It's a great experience. So Diane, thanks for catching up today to talk more about it.
Thanks so much, Brian.
Thank you for joining us. You can learn more about this and other topics at greenhousegrower.com, and you can also follow Greenhouse Grower on LinkedIn. Please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. And please leave us a rating or review, as it helps other listeners find the show. The Greenhouse Grower to Grower podcast is produced by the team at Meister Media Worldwide. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower.